Hey everybody, Joe Lowry, what a day, and today my guest is an international wrestling sensation. She's grappling with the best of them all over the world, and she is the current GSW Soul of Syndicate Women's Champion. Let's give a warm WhattaDay welcome to the Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich.
Hey Joe, what a day, huh?
There you go. All righty, that's great. Now, we were talking beforehand, you are the current GSW Soul of Syndicate champion, and if the internet is true to form, you won like a triple threat match to win that title this past April?
A four-way match, yes.
Four-way, excuse me. I must have missed a name there.
Probably.
Awesome. So how does it feel to be champion? Is this one of your first titles, or is it your second, third title?
If I'm counting correctly, this is either my fourth or fifth championship that I've acquired through my career.
Awesome.
And it feels great to be champion again. And since we're on the topic of GSW and they rudely left me out of the women's tournament, I plan to become champion at GSW.
Nice. Now, do you have any future dates coming up with them at all, or?
Well, we have a show on May 22nd, and they should be expecting me to arrive whether I'm in the tournament or not.
So you're going there whether anybody likes it or not, correct?
That is correct, indeed.
Awesome. So I got to ask you, Masha Slamovich, great character. You're from Russia. You're the Russian Dynamite. How'd you come up with that character?
Well, I didn't have to do much of coming up because Masha Slamovich is me. I am Masha Slamovich. It all goes hand in hand. However, though, the nickname Russian Dynamite was definitely a play off of the Dynamite Kid, who everybody knows is one of my favorite wrestlers. So I'm Russian. He is Dynamite. I am Russian Dynamite.
Wow, that's awesome. I love to hear those kind of stories. Now, you've wrestled for Mission Pro Wrestling out of Buda, Texas before, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Right. Have you ever stepped into the ring with a frequent WhattaDay guest, Thunder Rosa?
I have actually, but it was not with Mission Pro. It was with Texas Wrestling League.
Wow.
3 weeks ago, I believe, we had a singles match, myself and Thunder Rosa.
And how'd you make out on that match?
Well, it didn't go the way I wanted it to at the end, but I thoroughly enjoyed the match, and I would love to wrestle Thunder Rosa again.
Awesome. Any plans on working with Mission Pro or Texas in the future?
Well, y'all will just have to follow Mission Pro social media to find out about all of the upcoming plans for me and everybody else on the roster.
That's awesome. Now, you're no stranger to the mat world and so forth. You've taken on the likes of AEW stars before they were stars, really. Chris Statlander, Layla Hirsch, Penelope Ford, just to name a few. You're grinding it out on the indie circuit. Do you see yourself going to a major promotion in the next few years or so, whether it's AEW, WWE, Impact, whatever?
My logic has always remained the same, and that is, if I put my best work out there, regardless of where I'm wrestling, those big companies will come looking for me anyways. I was never in a rush or in the Evolve pipeline to get to WWE. I honestly never cared about any of that. I wanted to travel the world and become a world-renowned wrestler who has earned and learned the skills from everywhere and everybody, and that is exactly what I continue to do. And, so far my sets are to be working, and like I said, those big companies, they're somewhere in my future because I know they're going to come for me, and that's not something I'm concerned over.
Now, thanks to social media, I've gotten to see you in the ring a few times on YouTube and so forth, and you seem to have that wrestling talent that I'm not going to say is lacking with a lot of the lady wrestlers, but there's some women wrestlers who go through the routines and so forth, but you seem to have that instinct, that know-how and so forth. And you've gotten some great training. Where did you get your training from?
So I started out being trained by Johnny Rods in Brooklyn, New York. Okay. And I spent, several years there until my debut, upon which time I was in Tokyo training with the 01 Dojo. And then upon my return to the United States, some time passed and I ended up training at House of Glory. And then for the year that I was in Japan recently, I was training under Chigusa Nagayo.
Yeah, I can see some of that training really paying off. I mean, I personally like your in-ring tactics and so forth. So, you know, I was dumbfounded some of the moves I saw, and, you know, that's spectacular. I'm a big fan of women's wrestling. I think the evolution and so forth, the revolution, I should say, of women's wrestling is really, every year it gets bigger and better. And there's no doubt about it that if you're an independent wrestling scene right now and you don't have any ladies on your match, I strongly urge promoters and so forth to get these women on the card, because, you know, you guys put on a hell of a show no matter where you're at. And kudos to you for that.
Thank you. And like you said, to those promotions who are maybe hesitant to book women, my answer to you on that is this: start with me. And if you're not convinced that I can go against another woman, why don't you give me one of your men for me to fold up into a lawn chair? And I'm sure after that you'll be bringing in myself and more women to heighten the things that you put out in your promotion.
So that's pretty much a big shout out to any indie wrestling promotion, or any wrestling promotion for that matter, who are hesitant in bringing in the women. You're saying this called you, let you know, you'll be there.
I'm saying call me, give me a woman, give me a man. I don't care who you are and what you identify as long as you're willing to get in that ring. Let's have a go at it, you know. I haven't named any promotions because I'm not going for the jugular this morning, but that's your morning.
It's too early, I know.
It's too early for
but that's great. That's great. I love it. I love the attitude. I love the fact that you seem like a no-nonsense person. You are the epitome of what a wrestler should be. Get in there. I don't care who I face, man, women, indifferent, doesn't matter. I love that. To me, that's a surefire way of putting butts in seats, as they say. So obviously, you know, that's your path, and I think that's awesome. Real quickly, the generic questions: what made you pursue wrestling? Did you get I hear the story all the time, my father or mother were watching it or whatever. How did you get introduced to wrestling?
So my parents couldn't care less about wrestling, and they didn't even know what it was until I started watching it as a kid. I remember being really young, and I saw wrestling on TV, and it just enamored me. From 5 minutes of watching it, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do when I'm older. And my mom's like, you're gonna grow out of it. And now she's ripping her hair out every time I go to a match.
You mean you're growing into it, not growing out of it?
Right, exactly.
That's for sure. Do you have any favorites, male or female, growing up? I mean, I know we all had our own, so.
I did, and most notably so. I never really had any female favorites, wow. As a woman wrestler, I grew up not caring about women's wrestling, which is ass backwards, right? I always love to see that anger and that intensity from people like Chris Benoit and The Undertaker and the Bret Hart, Eddie Guerrero. They were really on their shit, and their wrestling was so good, and I just remember being in love with that. With the intensity, with the fight. I was like Fit Finlay as a kid. I was like, I love to fight.
So you understand the history of the sport, it sounds like.
Oh, of course. Second, I started watching it on TV, and after that, my parents ended up getting a computer. So after that, I began to look it up online and find, go deeper, and I discovered the Dynamite Kid after looking into Chris Benoit and so on and so forth, and World of Sport and Japan and all that stuff. Yeah,
British Bulldogs to me were one of the greatest tag teams and so forth. So
I loved the British Bulldogs.
Yep, they were unbelievable.
Dynamite Kid and Davey, some of my favorites right there.
It's funny, growing up, I used to the Bulldogs obviously came to the Boston Garden. That's where I'm from, the Boston area, and I'll tell you, whether Hulk Hogan was on the card or whoever was on the card, they seem to have gotten the biggest pops at the stadiums and the arenas I was at. And I'm telling you, I knew that team was going somewhere. And they only got bigger and better until obviously the injury happened and so forth. But the British Bulldogs, no doubt. You probably the first. I've done over 50 interviews this year alone, and you're probably the first to mention like a Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, all in one sentence. Because to me, that tells me that you understand the history and the nature of the sport. So you have a good ring psychology for that, and that's the basis for any the ground, so to speak. You need to know that stuff to get in the ring. So did you find it easy to understand that stuff, or did you really have to study it?
So when I was training at Johnny Rod's, when I first, started out, I was 16. I was more growing up as an athlete my entire life. I wanted to perfect wrestling. I wanted to be the absolute best. My goal when I walked in was, to show, because there were so many people who didn't believe that I was going to last. They were like, you're 16, you're getting in here with a bunch of grown ass men. We're going to run you, we're going to run you through the ground. And I said, I'm going to be the best in this class. And I made it a point to just learn to wrestle. And for the first 2 years, that's really what I did. They taught me the basics and how to catch wrestle, to just wrestle on the ground. Yeah. And it took me way too damn long to understand actual psychology, I'll tell you. I didn't know how to call matches. I just knew how to go on the fly and listen. So it took me a little while to grasp the psychology of it. But once I did, and I might note that happened up in Canada on the ice roads. Once I did grasp the psychology, it was just up and smooth sailing from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Real quickly, future dates and so forth, the pandemic and everything. I know everything's opening back up. My newsfeed is just flooded with indie after indie promotion on top of the regular stuff. Do you see a full card coming up for you, a full summer slate coming your way soon?
Certainly, indeed. Let me pull up my phone here and I'll tell you some of my upcoming dates.
By all means, promote away.
Yes, this coming weekend, I will be in Rosemont, Minnesota, for the show called Iron Hearts. I don't remember which promotion it is. I'll find that for you because I need to be correct. It's called Iron Hearts. There we go. I was right.
All right, awesome.
That I'll be facing against Killer Kate.
Okay. And who's also been out? She was just on WhattaDay a couple of weeks ago. Killer Kate, awesome.
Oh, wonderful! See, there you go. And the weekend after that, we will have the LVAC show where I'll be facing Veda Scott. Poor Veda Scott. Please send her your prayers in advance. And I believe the day after that, I'll be facing off against John Wayne Murdoch for SWE. Nice. And later that night, I will take myself to the GSW show, whether they want me there or not.
And what do you think? Are you bringing a crew with you to film it, or are you just showing up there unannounced?
I'm showing up there with whoever wants to join me. And the last thing I'll plug is that the last thing going on in May is going to be New Texas Pro, where I will be facing Sky Blue.
Nice. That's awesome. Now, how did you deal, real quickly off subject, how did you deal with the pandemic and so forth? Everything just like all of a sudden shutting down. A lot of people had their own, comments about that and so forth. Do you feel it's going to hurt wrestling or maybe help wrestling in the future? Because right now, a lot of places are playing catch up.
So I was lucky enough to spend all of 2020 living in Japan in the Marvelous Dojo. So my experience of the pandemic was certainly different from the experience that people had in the United States. It's not a good thing. A pandemic, there's no good that comes out of it. Right. But I have to say that I certainly hope that this did weed out those who weren't serious. And soon we will finally see the results of what people have been doing during the pandemic. There were people who absolutely took themselves to the next level. There are people who are working out and studying and training and doing, the most, going to a park, using a bench, using the floor, their body weight to work out, to up their psychology, to get new gear, promos, to stay active on social media. And then there's the people who said they love wrestling, who didn't give a damn, who didn't work on themselves, and who did absolutely nothing to better themselves in the past year.
Yep.
I certainly hope that they will be weeded out of this business once everything starts back up. And the people who put the work in and earned it will be elevated to the next level as they deserve. That is my hope for pro wrestling post-pandemic.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly. There is no substitute for hard work and dedication and so forth. But I want to thank you for coming on, checking in with WhattaDay and so forth. Do you want to tell our fans where they can find you on social media?
Y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Masha Slamovich. I also have a Facebook page that is also labeled Masha Slamovich. Of course, you can find all of my latest t-shirts on prowrestlingtees.com/Masha Slamovich. And for all of the exclusive content, I just made a fun post about a Russian story on my Patreon, patreon.com/Masha Slamovich. And for purchase of the PWI magazines that I have copies of, and for 8x10s, pins, merchandise, anything you need, direct message me on Twitter or Instagram, once again, at Masha Slamovich.
Awesome. I want to thank you for coming on WhattaDay. This has been an honest. I love your attitude. I love your dedication, your work ethic towards this great sport and so forth. And I know if you ever get up to the Northeast area of things, if you ever come to the New England area, I'll definitely come and check you out and so forth, because what I've seen on YouTube and so forth, I really would like to see you in action. But thank you so much for coming on WhattaDay.
Thank you for having me, and have a great day.
All right, folks, there you have it. The Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich. You can see this interview and all my interviews exclusively on Bill Apter's OneWrestlingVideo.com YouTube channel, so take a look over there. But that's going to do it for me here, folks. I'm Joe Lowry. What a day!